Virelia was a planet of wonder, a jewel of emerald forests and crystal lakes suspended in the star-streaked skies of the Andromeda cluster. Its people were elegant and pristine, their beauty measured in smooth, translucent skin that shimmered like glass, and in the delicate floral fragrances they exuded naturally, but not Zephyra. Born different. Cursed, some whispered. Her skin was rough, earthen-toned like ancient bark. It bore wild, swirling patterns of deep green and brown that marked her as contaminated in the eyes of her kin. And worse, her scent. Musky, earthy, wild. The Virelian men recoiled from it. To them she was dirty, savage, unworthy. Years, Zephyra wandered the edges of her home city, Lissithar, keeping to the dense woods where the trees did not judge her. She learned to live quietly, to move with the wind, to talk with creatures the Virelians ignored. The forest was her refuge. Its scent matched her own. She watched from afar as the other Virelian women, luminous and flawless, were courted by tall, silver-haired males. She felt the ache of loneliness like a blade pressed against her heart. But Zephyra had long given up hope of finding love, at least on this world, until the sky burned, until the stars opened, until he arrived. It was a thunderous night, the sky ablaze with falling debris. A ship, not Virelian, tore through the atmosphere like a wounded beast. Zephyra watched its descent from the cliffs of her forest, her golden eyes wide with curiosity. The vessel landed clumsily in the Shadow Grove, a forbidden region where no Virelian dared tread. Except Zephyra. Of course she went. She moved like a shadow through the moss-laden paths, her bare feet silent on the wet earth. She approached the ship, not sleek and transparent like Virelian designs, but solid, metallic, marked with strange symbols. United Earth Exploratory Command. UE. Her heart raced. No Virelian ship, a foreigner, a stranger, a human, the hatch, hissed open with a sound like escaping breath. And then she saw him, tall, muscular, his skin a sun-warmed bronze, his eyes deep brown, rich with emotion. His dark hair was tousled from the crash, his uniform torn at the sleeve. He looked tired, yet when his gaze met hers, he didn't recoil, he didn't wrinkle his nose, he didn't turn away. Instead, he smiled. "Hey," he said in a voice like thunder softened by rain. "Didn't expect company out here." Zephyra froze, unused to kindness. He stepped closer. "My name's Elias Grant, Captain, Earth Exploration Division. Are you from here?" She hesitated before speaking, her voice rough from lack of use. "Zephyra," she whispered. His smile grew. "Zephyra," he repeated as though tasting the name on his tongue. "Beautiful name." Her heart skipped. No one had ever called her beautiful. Not once. For hours they spoke, their words awkward but eager, him in his Earth dialect, her in Virelian, laced with forest speak. He told her of Earth, blue oceans, endless skies, crowded cities bursting with life, and she told him of Virelia, of the council that ruled from ivory towers, of the strict caste of beauty that dictated worth. He frowned. "So, because your skin and scent aren't like theirs, they reject you?" he asked. She nodded, shame curling in her gut. But Elias shook his head. "That's ridiculous," he said firmly. "Where I come from, the strongest things in nature have the boldest scents. The most powerful trees have bark like yours. The earth beneath our feet, the source of all life, smells exactly like you." Zephyra blinked. No one had ever spoken to her like that, like she was powerful. As the twin moons rose above the forest, casting their silver glow on them, Zephyra felt something stir in her chest, a fragile ember of hope. Maybe, Just maybe. She had been born for this, not to be loved by her own kind, but to be loved by someone who could truly see her. And for the first time in her lonely life, Zephyra smiled, not because she had to, not because she was pretending, but because Elias, this strange, bold human, saw her not as an outcast, but as something rare, something worthy, something beautiful. For the first time in her life, Zephyra did not feel invisible. Captain Elias Grant had not only spoken to her without disgust, he stayed. He kept coming back. Every day, after repairing what he could of his battered spacecraft, Elias would venture into the forest to find her. And every day, Zephyra was already waiting. It became their unspoken ritual. He would bring something strange from his ship. Strange to her, at least. A tiny device that played music. A thin, black tablet that glowed with moving images from Earth. Oceans, storms, animals, cities so large they swallowed the horizon. She would bring him gifts in return. Fruits from the rarest trees, roots that healed wounds, glowing stones from deep caves that pulsed faintly in his hands. But the greatest gift was not something physical. It was their time together. Elias had never met anyone like Zephyra. She wasn't just surviving out here, she was thriving. She could call birds down from the treetops with a whisper. She could heal a gash on his arm using nothing but crushed leaves and sung words that sounded older than the stars. Most Virelians, from what he gathered, were clean, distant, perfection-obsessed beings that barely touched the earth beneath their feet. But Zephyra, she was the earth, and Elias was captivated. One day, as they sat beneath a twisting emerald tree, Zephyra asked the question that had been burning in her mind since the day she met him. "Why do you not turn away from me?" she asked quietly, voice laced with genuine confusion. "I am not beautiful, not like the others. I smell wild, dirty." Elias leaned back, studying her, the sharp lines of her cheekbones, the wild braid, of her hair interwoven with vines and beads, the subtle glow in her golden eyes. He smiled. "In my world," he said slowly, "we've learned that real beauty isn't in perfection. It's in the stories, the scars, the differences." He reached over, so slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a loose braid behind her ear. "You are the most real thing I've seen since I left Earth." Her breath caught. No man, Virelian or otherwise, had ever dared touch her so tenderly. Their connection grew deeper with every meeting. He told her stories of Earth, how humans struggled, how they fought wars and made mistakes, but how they loved fiercely and without rules. Zephyra listened with wide eyes. Love without rules? Oh, unthinkable on Virelia. Here, love was transactional, calculated, a bond of perfect appearances, not imperfect souls. But Elias described lovers on Earth who met by chance, across battlefields, across oceans, and still chose each other. Chosen. The word echoed in her heart. She had never been chosen. Until now. One evening, as they sat beside a pool of glowing water, Elias did something that made her heart tremble. He pulled out a small device from his pocket. A music player. Soft music filled the clearing, not Virelian but deeply human, a slow melody of strings and voice, haunting and beautiful. Elias stood and extended his hand to her. "Dance with me," he said. Zephyra froze. "No, I do not know your dances. My kind do not." But he shook his head. "There's no right way. Just move with me." Hesitantly, so hesitantly, she placed her rough, earth-stained hand in his calloused one. He led her slowly, swaying beneath the two moons, their bodies moving closer as the song wrapped around them like a spell. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. and Zephira felt something crack open inside her. Something ancient, something dangerous. Hope. But not everyone on Virelia was blind to their growing bond, the Council of Elders had noticed. Whispers spread through Lissithar like wildfire. The outcast consorts with the human. She brings shame upon her kind, and worse, he had touched her. This was not merely a scandal, it was a threat. The Virelians had long seen humans as inferior, primitive creatures of flesh and bone tied to their decaying planet. To see one of their own, even Anne, outcast, loved by a human, it was unforgivable. One morning, as Zephira approached their meeting place, the air felt heavier. Wrong. She reached the clearing and found Elias waiting, but his face was grim. "I was warned today," he said quietly. "Your council sent a messenger. They told me to leave this planet, or there would be consequences." Zephira's heart dropped. Of course, her people would never let her be happy, never let her have someone who saw her worth. Tears burned in her eyes, rare for her kind. "I am sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "This is my curse. This is why I will always be alone." But Elias stepped forward and cupped her face, gently, reverently. "You listen to me, Zephira," he said, his voice fierce. "You are not cursed. You are not dirty. You are extraordinary." He leaned down, so close, and for the first time in her life their lips met. Soft. Warm. True. Neither of them noticed the shadowy figures watching from the trees. Watching. Waiting, preparing to tear them apart. Zephira's heart turned cold. "They threatened you?" she whispered, the forest around them seeming to darken with her rising fear. Elias nodded slowly. "They sent a projection to my ship this morning. They said I have 3 cycles of your moons to leave Virelia. Or they'll use force." She clenched her fists. Her people, the same ones who had cast her aside, who refused to look upon her without revulsion, now wanted to control who she loved? No. Not again. Not this time. Elias reached out, resting a hand on her shoulder. Strong. Steady. "Zephira, I don't want to leave. I won't, not if it means leaving you here. But I can't risk starting a war between my people and yours." Her golden eyes searched his face, feeling something raw and powerful surge within her chest. "I have been at war my whole life," she said softly. "But never for something that mattered. Never. For someone who saw me." She looked up at him. This human with weathered hands and a stubborn heart. "I would fight them all for you, Elias Grant." And she meant it. But Elias was a man of reason. War wasn't the answer. Love didn't need to destroy to be powerful. "We'll find another way," he promised her. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can be together, without hiding." Her brow furrowed. "Leave Virelia?" He hesitated. "My ship is damaged, but if I can finish the repairs, I could take you with me." Zephira looked back at her forest, her home. The trees she had whispered to since childhood, the creatures that trusted her, the earth that had cradled her loneliness. Leave it all? Could she? But then she looked at him, and she knew. He was her home now. Together they began to plan. Zephira guided Elias to hidden springs that would help cool the ship's engines. She harvested rare crystals from the cavernous roots of the earth that could recharge his failing power cells. Elias worked through sleepless nights, patching together human technology with Virelian resources, an impossible fusion of worlds, just like them. Their bond deepened in those fragile days. They shared stories not of their worlds, but of their hearts. Zephira told him of the songs her mother used to hum before she was shunned. Elias told her of his sister on Earth, who would climb the highest trees just to catch a glimpse of the stars. They laughed, They touched, they healed, but the council was not idle. Virelian soldiers, ethereal in their armor of translucent crystal, began to patrol the forests, searching for signs of Zephyra. She was now a symbol of rebellion, an outcast who had dared to find love. One night, as they worked together by the glowing roots of an ancient tree, the sky above them rippled with unnatural light. A voice, deep and cruel, echoed through the forest. "Zephyra of the Wild, daughter of none, your betrayal ends tonight." Elias grabbed her hand. "Run!" But Zephyra stood firm. "No," she said, her voice a low growl. "I will not run from them anymore." From the shadows emerged the leader of the Virelian Council Guard, High Enforcer Tyrao. He was flawless in the way her people revered. Tall, pale, skin like perfect glass, eyes devoid of warmth. "You disgrace us all," Tyrell spat. "A filthy creature clinging to a lesser being." Elias stepped in front of Zephyra, his stance protective. "Say what you want about me," Elias said coldly. "But she is worth more than your entire city of empty hearts," Tyrell sneered. "Then you will die beside her." But Zephyra was no longer afraid. The forest answered her call. Roots split the earth beneath Tyrell's feet. Vines lashed from the trees like serpents, wrapping around the crystal soldiers, dragging them to the ground. Zephyra's voice rose in a melody older than language, a song of wild power, of earth and heart entwined. She was no longer just an outcast. She was chosen, not by them. By the earth, by herself, by Elias. Together, they fought their way to the clearing where Elias's ship stood, engines humming faintly with stolen power. Breathing hard, Elias turned to her. "This is it. If we go now, there's no coming back." Zephyra looked once more at the forest that had shaped her, and then at the man who had saved her from her own loneliness. "I was never truly living here," she whispered. She placed her hand over his heart. "My life is with you." Without hesitation, they boarded the ship. As the engines roared to life and the ground trembled beneath them, Zephyra heard one final cry from the forest, not of sorrow, but of blessing. They broke through the atmosphere together. The stars opened. Before them, two souls, once abandoned, now unstoppable. And far behind them, Virelia faded into the blackness of space. But their story, it had only just begun. Zephyra placed her hand over Elias's heart, feeling the steady beat beneath his scarred chest. The only rhythm that truly mattered to her now. "I was never truly living here," she whispered again. "Not until I met you." Elias tightened, his grip on her hand, their fingers entwining like roots finally finding fertile earth. Without another word, they raced for his ship, their footsteps echoing through the forest that had once imprisoned her and now protected her. Behind them, the Virelian soldiers struggled, tangled in the wild fury of the forest. Tyrao, their cold and furious leader, roared commands in vain. The earth itself was fighting for Zephyra now. But the forest would not hold them forever. They had only moments. Inside the battered ship, Elias worked furiously at the controls, systems flickering, power levels unstable. Zephyra, unfamiliar with the technology of humans, could only watch him work, but her heart pounded with a primal energy. For the first time in her life, she wanted something for herself. Not to survive, but to live. "To the stars, then?" she asked quietly. Elias glanced back at her, a tired grin pulling at his lips. "To the stars." He initiated the launch sequence. The engines screamed in protest, patched together from human ingenuity and Virelian resources. The ground beneath the ship shook violently. But as they began to lift off, a sharp, brutal impact rocked the hull Tyrell. The High Enforcer himself had reached them, his armor glowing with cold fury, a weapon raised high, an energy lance crafted from the very heart of Lysithar's crystals. "You will not leave," he bellowed. "Your blood will stain this world. Your kind will never mix with ours." Zephyra stood between T-Rail and Elias, her body tense, ready. "I am not your kind," she said calmly. With a wordless command, the earth beneath T-Rail cracked. Roots surged like serpents coiling around his legs, but he slashed through them with unnatural strength. The ship's engines were groaning, rising higher, but not fast enough. Elias knew they wouldn't make it without help. He turned to Zephyra, his voice steady despite the chaos. "You have power I don't understand," he said, "but if there's anything left you can give, anything, now's the time." Zephyra looked around. The forest was alive with energy, but it wasn't enough. She needed more. She needed all of it. Closing her eyes, she pressed her palms to the floor of the ship, to the very wood and stone Elias had built into its frame. She began to sing. Not words of attack or defense, but a song of release, a song of farewell. The earth responded. The forest shook, trees bending in reverence. Energy surged through the roots into the ship's frame, ancient power flowing into human technology. Tyrell screamed in fury as the ship surged upward, faster than before, faster than it had any right to move. The last thing Zephyra saw, as they broke through the atmosphere, was Tyrell's face, twisted in rage, shrinking beneath the clouds. They had escaped. In the endless silence of space, the stars stretched out before them. Impossibly vast, impossibly beautiful. Zephyra sagged to the floor, her body weak, her connection to Lysithar severed, at least for now. Elias rushed to her side, kneeling. "Zephyra, are you—" "I'm alive," she whispered, managing a faint smile. "You brought me to the stars." He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "No," he whispered, into her hair. "You brought me here." Days passed. The ship drifted beyond Varelian space into regions unknown. Zephyra slowly recovered her strength, though the absence of the earth beneath her feet left her feeling hollow. But Elias filled that space with stories. He told her of Earth's oceans, wild and untamed, of cities full of colors and chaos, of a world where beauty was raw, messy, and real, and for the first time, she began to dream of it, a place not of flawless crystal towers, but of rivers, mountains, and forests she could walk without shame, a place where she could plant new roots. One evening, if the cycles of the stars could be called that, Elias approached her on the observation deck. "You know," he said with a half-smile, "I didn't just come to Varelia by accident." Zephyra arched an eyebrow. "No," he shook his head. "I came looking for something rare, something no human had ever seen before." He stepped closer. "I thought I was looking for treasure, technology, artifacts." He reached for her hand. "Rough, earthen, beautiful, but I found you." Zephyra felt her heart twist, not in pain, but in awe. No Varelian had ever spoken to her like this, not in her dreams, not in her wildest hopes. He wasn't just seeing her. He chose her. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "What happens now?" Elias smiled, soft, steady. "Now, we find a new world. For us, and beyond the glass of the ship's windows, past the scars of her old world, the universe stretched endlessly, full of unknown stars, full of new beginnings." Zephyra turned to Elias, her heart thudding softly in her chest, her alien skin shimmering faintly under the starlight pouring through the ship's viewport. "And did you find it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias chuckled, shaking, his head with a kind of awe, like he was still surprised she was real, sitting beside him. I thought I was looking for rare minerals, exotic technology. He paused, his eyes never leaving hers. But what I found was rarer than all of that. Zephira tilted her head, her emerald eyes glowing softly. You, he said simply. You, Zephira. For a moment, the stars outside seemed to dim in comparison to the way she smiled, hesitant, disbelieving, like no one had ever spoken to her like she was wanted, not pitied, not feared, not used, wanted, loved. Days turned into weeks as their small ship floated into deep space beyond Virelia's influence, beyond any known charted system. Together, they explored abandoned planets, uninhabited moons, searching for a place they could call home. But what they found was more important than any planet. They found each other. One night, after they'd shared stories for hours, Elias teaching her Earth's strange customs and she telling him the ancient songs of her people, he noticed her growing quiet, her gaze lost in thought. "What's on your mind?" he asked softly. Zephira hesitated. She looked down at her hands, once ridiculed for being rough, now cherished for what they could create, heal, protect. "I'm afraid," she admitted. Elias shifted closer, his expression never mocking, never judgmental. "Of what?" She looked up, her voice trembling. "That you will wake up one day and see me as they all did. Smelly, dirty, worthless." Those words, so often hurled at her on Virelia, tasted bitter in her mouth even now. But Elias's response was immediate. Fierce. "Listen to me," he said, reaching to cup her face gently. "You are not what they called you. You are life itself, Zephira. You made dead ground bloom. You healed a forest. You saved me." His thumb brushed away a tear from her cheek. "I didn't fall in love with a perfect crystal doll. I fell for you, for your wildness, for your stubbornness, for your beautiful untamed soul." Her breath caught. He had said it. Love. In that quiet place between stars, two souls, from worlds apart, bridged a distance greater than galaxies. Zephira leaned forward, her forehead resting against his, and in a voice so soft it could barely be heard over the hum of the ship, she whispered, "I love you too." Their journey wasn't over. There were dangers ahead, pirates, unexplored systems, even the lingering threat of Virelia's long reach. But it didn't matter, because together they were unstoppable. Months later, on the edge of a forgotten galaxy, they found it. A small, lush planet untouched by war or greed, a place where wildflowers grew without pruning, where rivers roared without walls, where the earth smelled rich and alive. Zephira stepped onto that soil, her bare feet sinking into soft moss, and for the first time in her life she wept not from sadness, but from joy. Elias built them a home, with her guidance, with her songs woven into every stone. Together, they planted gardens that flourished with strange, alien beauty. Together, they made a life, a love, a family, and far away, in the glittering cold towers of Virelia, the name Zephira became legend, not as a rejected, dirty woman, but as the one who escaped, the one who found something purer than crystal. Freedom. Love. And so, on a forgotten world at the edge of the universe, a human and an alien woman proved the truth no empire could silence. Real beauty is wild. Real love is untamed. Real worth is never decided by others, but discovered by hearts brave enough to see it. Do you believe love can break all barriers? Would you risk everything to be truly seen? Join Zephyrah and Elias's story. And remember, in a universe full of perfect illusions, it's the imperfect souls that shine the brightest.